Hello, welcome back to the Peninsulas. So today it's about 37 degrees, so that's not bad. It's going to be a good day to work outside. And it's about 77 degrees in Florida. So big difference in temperature this lovely fall day. So I'm going to just kind of tour you through my garden progression, sort of. Very brief spring look here. This is the early stages of the garden, which looks not too bad. And as it grows here, probably about mid-June. Then we got to August and everything turned into chaos and conundrums, really, but mostly chaos and volunteer corn, which was fun. We just let it grow. Didn't go into anything. I think speed corn. So yeah, this is the chaos that was about August time. We've got tomatoes taking over the yard, and then frost. Frost happened a couple of times. The garden is ready to clean up. It's ready to just be brutally destroyed. Just kidding. I'm not planning on ripping any of the roots up. I planned on just cutting the plants back. None of my plants had obvious diseases, so the roots should be good to decompose over the winter and then just kind of be some good fertilizer. I had very unsuccessful kale plants. Well, the plants themselves did grow. However, they were attacked by worms pretty much most of the summer. And we had a lot of cabbage butterflies, and I did not do well picking the worms off in any way, shape, or form. I'm avoiding any kind of pesticides. I tried sprays that I found recipes for. Either they didn't work or it wasn't consistent enough. As you can see, there's snuggled worms inside of there still that are dead from frost, but they grew, they were eaten, but not by me. So the Brussels sprouts did the same thing. Most of them did not produce edible Brussels sprouts, but this one kind of looked like it could have been edible if I had caught it in time. They were just full of worms, and so they were eaten, but once again, not by us. This will definitely be something I repeat next year, but I will be using some row covers because I just can't battle the butterflies. The butterflies are very prolific here. I noticed they loved the Brussels sprouts. I got to the cabbages, ironically, first. So I was able to eat the cabbage, but not any of the other brassicas that I grew. It was a sad day. But our peppers, a few jalapenos left out there. Nice little red one. They're too squishy to eat because they got frost. I just couldn't get to them fast enough to pick them. So one recommendation I would make very heavily is never tie up your tomatoes with T-posts and paracord. Most of you are probably smart enough to know that that's not going to work. In my mind, when I did it, I was like, this is probably not going to work, but I'm going to do it anyway because I don't want to buy tomato cages and I didn't want to buy a cattle panel yet. And so that's all I had, kind of, sort of, in the way of tying up unruly tomatoes. These tomatoes were obviously indeterminate and they just grew forever and ever. And I was not on top of pruning them. I missed half the suckers, probably more than half. Some of the things that I found, I was really afraid, if I don't stay on top of pruning them and the suckers don't get plucked off, my tomatoes aren't going to produce. They produced way too many tomatoes. This particular tomato was a tomato that I saved seeds from Laura. She had this nice yellow pear tomato that was small and sweet and lovely, and so I saved a few of the tomatoes for seeds and planted them. They did amazing. Like, they grew over the whole garden. They took up the entire garden. They grew into the yard. They were flopping everywhere. And of course, If you don't know this, you can discover it very quickly. If a tomato stem hits the ground, it roots. So one really cool thing, which I did try, is if you cut the suckers off, you can just stick them in the ground and they will grow a new tomato plant. So it's very easy to grow lots of tomatoes if you let them just do their own thing. It, however, makes them very hard to pick, very unruly. You have to stomp on most of the plant to get to the tomatoes themselves. So I would highly recommend following everyone else's good advice and make sure that you do a nice staking system, making sure that you're pruning as much as you can, if you can stay on top of it. If not, just make sure that you get a tomato cage or a stake. Next year, we're going to try the Florida weave system to hold the tomatoes up, or a cattle panel, which either way is going to be better than what I did this year, which one of the stories of the garden is that I really wanted to garden. I wasn't fully prepared, but I went at it anyway. Overall, it turned out pretty good because we had a lot of tomatoes, we had a lot of eggplants, we got a lot of herbs. A lot of our basil plants were huge. So if you don't have all the preparation in place, try it. I would highly recommend you get most of, or if not all of, the grass out of the garden itself. I don't have a tiller, and I don't plan on investing in a tiller anytime soon. And so I used a hoe and a shovel and a rake, which won't work if you have lots of gravel or rocks in your soil. A broad fork is really good for that. Near the end of the season, I did get a broad fork as a lovely gift, and it helped so much. I wished I had had it at the beginning of the season, but I'm excited to have it next season. So I didn't want the paracord that I used at the top of the T-posts and the ground, so we collected that. But everything else that we had was just cotton twine, so it can be burned or it can be composted. Not composting my tomato plants, we'll plan to burn those, but the roots that I couldn't or didn't have to pull up, that I just left. So yeah, Chaos Garden is okay. It produces. It's just crazy. So go for it if you want to. If you're more of an aesthetic person and don't really want your garden to look chaotic, be a little more prepared than I was. If you don't mind the chaos and you just want to see if you can grow something, by all means, you can do it. I 100% guarantee it. Especially if you have hardy seeds of tomatoes. So I left a couple of plants out. The chives obviously are perennials. They're going to come back next year. The celery, not perennials, but I'm doing a fun experiment to see how long they last out there in the cold, just to see if I can, pick some and use them for cooking, even if it's chilly. They're pretty flopped over, a little unhappy. So we're going to pull out this fence, and this fence is going to go to the new garden plot, because this garden plot is going to be shrunk down quite a bit because two sections of it didn't get enough sun. The middle section got a significant amount of sun pretty much all day. However, there were two sections of it where the trees kind of shaded too much of it, and I don't think it got a sufficient amount of sun. Another recommendation that I would make is if you do put up a fence, so we didn't have trouble with deer, knock on wood. We did have rabbits that came and ate my broccoli in the beginning, so I decided to go ahead, put up this little rabbit fence. I would recommend mulching the bottom of your fence for various reasons, but mostly because if you do take it down, it's really hard to pull wire, not super strong wire, out of knee-high grass. And obviously you can't mow under it, and weed whacking is just really difficult because the wire will break, and or your string on your weed eater is just going to get chopped up by the wire. So it's kind of not economical. Mulch it, put dead leaves, put chopped up grass, whatever will kill the grass underneath the fence will make your life easier, and not have a fence full of grass once you do finally pull it up. Autumn is sprinkling the anise hyssop seeds everywhere, which is fine because if we have more of those, that's great. So yeah, so we're cutting back the perennials. The perennials I will mark with one of the T-posts so that I know where not to mow over next year. And right now, as we go through here, so the plan is to just mark the things that I don't want mowed over and make the sections that I'm going to create next year's little garden plot back here, and I'm going to cover it in mulched leaves. So as we clean up in the fall, we're just going to dump all the mulched leaves there and try to smother that grass that's left. There's a lot of it, but it is what it is, and it's okay. The eggplant and stuff, just making sure that it's cleaned up, chopped back those little stems, but not taking up the roots. As I said earlier, I'm going to just kind of let those be for compost, for some nutrition and nutrients in the soil. The clippers that I'm using are just little hand clippers and worked for most of the plants. So the kale, as you saw, was really, really large, and I went to chop them back so that I could feed them to the quail and the chickens. And I just couldn't do it, so I had to bring out the big guns, and worked much better. Be prepared. Don't break your clippers like I did. That is not a great plan. So yeah, I'm going to save the kale for the chickens and the quail. They are going to like the little worms that are left in there, as well as like the kale itself. They enjoyed eating that over this. They actually got to eat it because they like the worms as well. But they enjoyed eating it over the summer some. And yeah, so as I clean up, I'm kind of in my mind thinking about what am I going to do, not going to do next year. And I'm not going to plant as many yellow tomatoes. In fact, I didn't save any of those tomatoes for seeds due to them being probably hybridized a lot with the other tomatoes I planted very close by. And just being very overwhelmed by the amount of tomatoes that they produce. We can't keep up. We gave a lot away. Ended up hundreds of tomatoes on the ground. I'm probably going to have so many volunteers because I couldn't clean them all up, and I'm going to cry and be ripping up tomato plants next season. So we're going to save all the stakes and cutting back the lettuce plants and stuff that I'm hoping I left them out there so they went to seed. I'm hoping that they will reseed and possibly just come up next spring. I was talking to someone and they said that that's what they do in their herb garden. They use the lettuce, they let it go to seed, and that they use it as living mulch. So that'll be a fun experiment to run. The ever helpful chickens came by to see what's going on. So once I got everything ripped up, I wanted to scalp it. That, however, did not go as I planned. I had to raise the blade because the mower did not like the thickness of the grass and it just kept shutting off. So I had to put the blade as high as possible, which with this mower is actually pretty low. If I had managed to get it pretty low, I probably would have been able to really do a good number on the grass to keep it out of the growing stages for next year. I'm just mowing around all of the plants that I'm saving. So I left a couple of Brussels sprouts to see how long it takes the plant to actually, what temperatures it will tolerate, just for fun, kind of, and for informational purposes of like, okay, if I did cover it, would I be able to get it to last for longer? Brussels sprouts, obviously you're going to harvest the Brussels sprouts and that'll be that. But like the kale, I left a kale plant and I left a couple of other things, the celery and a few other things. I just wanted to kind of experiment, like how long is it going to last? What temperatures is it lasting through before the frost and snow actually kill it? My mower doesn't want to do what it's supposed to do and keeps turning off. We have a fuel filter issue on it, but once it gets going, it kind of stays going. What I did was just mowed everything because there, as you saw, was a lot of grass. There was also a lot of cardboard, and the cardboard that's there just got chopped up into mulch and little pieces, which then it'll decompose faster, and that'll be handy. Where the archway is, there will not be any plants there next year because that place just did not get sun. We tried some cucumbers there, and we used the arbor as the vines, so the vines can climb it. We had cucumber beetles really bad, and once I left my garden for like a week, they had killed everything. So, but also they just didn't get a lot of sun, so they didn't produce well. So next year we're going to move the cucumbers to the plot that I'm making in the full sun, which will be a future video for you to see how I'm doing that. So cardboard flying everywhere, getting chopped up really nicely. Most of it's decomposing, and I won't have cardboard as much on this side because I plan to use this as like a leaf dump section right now, so that next spring all of that will be dead and I will be able to just go ahead and use my broad fork and I would say till it in, but I don't have a tiller, so kind of till it in with a broad fork, loosen everything, and just use it as the smaller garden plot that I planned. The garden plot will be planned between those two big trees that you see, which were the shade problems. So that's the plan for next year, and in a future video I will show you the garden prep that I plan to do in this section. So once I mulched everything and mowed through it all, I basically just wanted to kick everything into that area so that I can keep the cut grass and mulched cardboard and the leaf litter inside of that area. So there was a lot of it over on that section behind the arbor, so I just raked it that direction. And I'm going to probably end up stacking leaves probably about a foot deep here. I have so many maple trees and their leaves break down relatively quickly, and once I mulch them and we rake them up, I'm going to put it as thick as I possibly can. Not so much over top of the fennel because fennel doesn't particularly like to be mulched. Probably less, it doesn't care quite as much over the fall and winter months because it's more dormant, but I don't want to kill it. I want to see how it comes back next year. And I will plant more fennel that will actually eat the bulbs from. We didn't manage to eat the bulbs before they had bolted this year. But I want to see how it comes back, so I'm not going to mulch that super heavy, so probably just a thin layer that I can pull back as it warms up in the spring. And then I won't heavily mulch the strawberries because I don't want them to drown. So I'm going to mulch under those with the leaves, and then everywhere else will probably have about a foot of leaves if I can manage to have them not blow away. And that is pretty much the garden cleanup, and it's partial prep, I suppose, but there will be more prep that goes into this particular endeavor here. It didn't take as long as I thought it would, which is great. It's much faster to clean it up than it is to plant it. Not as much fun because everything is dead and or dying. So overall, I would say the garden was a success because we did get about probably 50 or more pounds of tomatoes. We've made pizza sauce with them. We tried making pizza sauce with the yellow tomatoes, but it was just too sweet for our taste. They're good for eating, not great for sauce, just because of the fact that they just have that very sweet flavor and a lot of water. So that's it. That's the garden cleanup. The chickens are doing their number, just checking things out, like, hey, what did you do? Oh, we know you did it for us. How kind of you. Let us help you. Scratch and scratch and scratch. Can't have anything nice with chickens, though. If you don't want them scratching your plants, don't free range or have a really big fence. These guys can fly pretty well, so the fence that we do have for them, they fly over. They don't like not being free. I try to keep them locked up when we're not home, just due to the fact that we've had a couple of them disappear just randomly. We have some hawks. Overall, they do pretty well. Anyway, that's a chicken video, not a garden video. Clearly, my chickens don't care about vegetables, so they're kind of leaving the kale alone. But the quail really like it. So the ones that I chopped up, I took over to the quail and just laid it inside of their aviary so that they could kind of just pick at it as they wanted to. I think I'm going to come up with a system where I can kind of hang up the vegetables later on so that they're not just laying there on the ground. Ew. And this is Broth. He was one of the many roosters that we accidentally hatched out, and we kept him. He was the feistiest and most aggressive of the chicks that we hatched, and hence the name Broth. But Broth would appreciate a like and subscribe, so like and subscribe.